This is episode 49 part 2. If Chief Xiao is not around to keep watch, it is unavoidable that some trouble might occur. The only female among the leaders of the three large factions, Chief Sumai of Luo Shogate raised her eyes and randomly asked with a lovely smile. Tai Wu and old Yin Jiyu by her side also slowly paused their hands when these words were spoken. Their gazes partially swept toward Xiao Li, who was on the leader's seat. The three of them smiled when they heard this. Old Yin Jiyu placed the teacup in his hand down and smiled and said, "Brother Xiao, although we have an agreement that we will follow you to the Jioma Empire to deal with your enemy, you should also know that the Misty Cloud sect possesses an elite dozong. Hence, we will not dare to go if Chief Xiao and that person do not follow." Xiao Li knit his brows. These three cunning fellows were indeed seasoned people, who had muddled along with the Black Corner region for such a long time. They were actually leaving a means to escape at such a time in case of any trouble that might occur in the future. Why? Do the three of you have any doubts about the agreement back then? If you have, you can directly mention it to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang may be young, but I am not a soft person. I think that the three of you should be very clear about this point. Xiao Yang glanced at the three people and spoke with a faint voice. Appropriate beatings were extremely useful toward these cunning people. The people of the Black Corner region were cowed by force, but did not respond to soft persuasion. As expected, the expressions of the three of them changed a little upon hearing Xiao Yang's words, which carried a threat. They immediately hurriedly nodded their heads to prove his point. The three of you need not be anxious. I am merely randomly saying this. Xiao Yang spread his hand when he saw the changed expression on the three faces. He smiled and said, "We might be going to the Jioma Empire within these 2 months. The three of you should make preparations. When things succeed, I will definitely deliver all the Huang-class pills that I promised you. Within these 2 months." Tai Wu and the other three were startled when they heard this. Was this amount of time not a little too rushed? Although they muttered a little in their hearts, they did not dare to utter any objection at this moment. Moreover, under that enormous temptation of the Huang-class pill, the three of them hesitated only a little before nodding and agreeing. Looks like we should quickly settle all the matters within the sect. This thought flashed within the three of them simultaneously. They conversed a little more with Xiao Yang before hurriedly bid him goodbye. Xiao Yang sent the three backs off with his eyes before curling his mouth slightly. He coldly said, "Those three cunning fellows. Did they really think that it is so easy to take advantage of me? Little fellow, you are finally back. The matters within the Feng City, during this half a year have really agonized me badly." Xiao Li stepped down from the leader's seat, and came to Xiao Yang's front. He patted the latter's shoulders as he spoke with a smile. Xiao Yang smiled as he saw Xiao Li's emotional sigh. His gaze suddenly turned to the three human figures behind Xiao Li, and raised his brows slightly. He could sense that these three people were actually all experts at the Do Wen class. Who are these three? The three Yao brothers greet Chief. Without waiting for Xiao Li to call them, the three men, who had maintained an indifferent expression, suddenly cupped their hands in an orderly and respectful manner as they spoke. These three are brothers related by blood. They share the surname Yao. Although they did not join any factions in the past, three elite Do Wangs are also quite powerful. Hence, they do have some reputation within the Black Corner region. They offended the Gold-Silver brothers a few years earlier. Therefore they have been hiding within the Black Corner region. I discovered them some time ago, so I called them over. Xiao Li explained by his side. Next, I will have to make a trip to the inner academy. I shall leave the matter of gathering helpers to you. Xiao Yang smiled and said, "No problem. Leave it to me." Xiao Li parted his mouth and smiled. His gaze turned toward the distant southern sky outside. A savage arc faintly surfaced on his cold, stern face. "Misty Cloud sect, the person seeking revenge is about to come. Are you prepared?" The person who had followed Xiao Yang into the inner academy was still Medusa, who had been following closely beside Xiao Yang. These two people were standing on the main road where people came and went without any misgivings. Naturally, they attracted a countless number of surprised and curious gazes. With Medusa's beautiful, demon-like appearance, she naturally possessed an unusual allure that was difficult to describe with words to these young students, who had been living in the ivory tower. Some of the younger teenagers, or young men, felt a great interest to the mature woman. This was the so-called fondness for an elder sister feeling. Medusa appeared to have totally ignored all the numerous amazed gazes from around her. Her bewitching, pretty face was still as cold as ice. The cold aura spreading all over her body that completely turned others away also caused some of the bold fellows, who had the thought of striking up a conversation with her, to dismiss such a notion. Although Medusa was able to ignore those gazes from around her, Xiao Yan still felt somewhat helpless. Since the former had been following him around closely, those gazes could not help but fall onto him. However, the gazes that turned to him were naturally not of amazement, but of extremely pure envy and a kind of jealousy within a man's heart. A person who was able to possess that kind of beauty, who could bring ruin to a country, was mostly a common enemy in the hearts of men. Xiao Yang naturally did not hear the various conversations of those students. After leaving the spot where everything occurred, he maneuvered at lightning-like speed to the area deep inside the inner academy where the first elder Su Qian was located. When Xiao Yang entered the study that Su Qian usually used, the latter also discovered his footsteps. He lifted his head to look at Xiao Yang, who was the first to enter, and could not help but smile. He was just about to get up when his gaze locked onto Medusa, who was behind Xiao Yang. First elder need not be worried. I have already settled the matter between the both of us. Xiao Yang saw the suddenly solidifying of Su Qian's face, and hurriedly opened his mouth to laugh. He knew that Su Qian was extremely afraid of Medusa within his heart. After all, this woman truly caused him to feel a sense of danger. Su Qian's tensed body only quietly relaxed a little after hearing this. Although most of his focus still remained on Medusa, he was able to reveal a smile on his face as he spoke. You have been gone for a couple of months in one go. Were it not because I had confidence in you, I would have really thought that you had been quietly finished off by those fellows within the Black Corner region. Xiao Yang smiled and slowly walked into the study. After which, he sat down on the chair in front of Su Qian, and spoke with a smile. First elder need not lie to me. How can the inner academy not sense it when I create such a big commotion within the Black Corner region? Su Qian was startled. He immediately could not help but laugh as he shook his head. He said, little fellow, you are indeed not an ordinary person. You have now occupied Feng City, set up an enormous medicinal pill auction, and attracted the attention of over half the Black Corner region. The inner academy naturally needed to pay some attention. What are your plans now that you have returned? However, strictly speaking, you are still a student of our inner academy. Looking at the date, you have yet to graduate. Yet, you have not been training within the inner academy. This kind of behavior is sufficient to allow me to give you the title of a bad student. Su Qian first asked a question, before immediately rolling his eyes at Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang gave an embarrassed smile. He was also somewhat helpless as he spoke with a bitter smile. First elder should also know that the inner academy no longer has much benefit to me anymore. Su Qian curled his mouth. Xiao Yang's current strength would not be able to increase much within the inner academy. Even training all day long at the bottom of the blazing sky Qi refining tower would not have much attraction to Xiao Yang, who possessed the real fallen heart flame. However, he still felt a little displeased when he thought about it. This fellow really did not engage in honest work. First elder, I might perhaps return to the Jioma Empire within these 2 months. Xiao Yang's gaze looked at Su Qian, as he spoke with an increasingly solemn expression. Su Qian was slightly startled. He knit his brow slightly as he voiced his thoughts. Are you returning to the Jioma Empire already? So soon? Xiao Yang sighed softly and spoke with a faint voice. I have already left for 3 years. Some grudges must eventually be settled. Su Qian smiled and said, you are about to leave. Is there anything that I can help you with? Xiao Yang rubbed his head and spoke with an embarrassed smile. There is actually nothing much. It is just that I hope First Elder can help me look after Xiao Gate after I leave. This is not a bad development place. Once I settle the matter in the Jioma Empire, I will formally send someone to take it over. However, before this, First Elder might need to help look after it. After all, you should also know about the kind of place the Black Corner region is. Without me sitting around, it is likely that Feng City will be occupied by other factions within a short period of time. Little fellow, you actually want me a person from the Inner Academy, to help you look after a faction within the Black Corner region. Su Qian felt neither able to laugh nor cry. However, he ended up nodding a moment later. He voiced his thoughts. This is not too much trouble. The Black Corner region has many big and small factions, who could form a force that even the Jiunan Academy would have difficulty contending against if they united together. But it is fortunate that each of these fellows harbor sinister motives and have difficulty joining hands. Given our strength, taking care of Xiao Gate should not be much of a problem. In that case, thank you very much, First Elder. Xiao Yan rejoiced when he saw Su Qian nodding his head, and he cupped his hands together to thank with a grin. Su Qian smiled and immediately said, although I know that returning to the Jiuman Empire is an extremely important matter to you, you should not blame me for not providing you much help on this matter, because of the special status of the Jiunan Academy on the continent. Xiao Yang is not an unreasonable person. First Elder has already given me enough help. Xiao Yang laughed softly. He had naturally not dreamed that Su Qian would use the Jiunan Academy's strength to help him seek revenge. After all, this academy did not belong to him alone. Su Qian smiled and nodded as he looked at the cheerful smile on the delicate, handsome, young face. His finger gently knocked on the table. A moment later, he randomly said, of course, some elders, especially those like Lin Yang who have been promoted from a student, may be an Inner Academy elder in name, but they are free individuals. Whatever they wish to do naturally does not have much relationship with us. This do you understand? Xiao Yang was startled when he heard these words of Su Qian, which were pointing in a certain direction. He immediately smiled and nodded. Since that is the case, thank you very much, First Elder. Xiao Yang sent off those elders who had greeted him before he quietly sighed in relief. It had only been a couple of months since they had met. Did they really need to be so warm and enthusiastic? Where do you need to go next? An ice-cold voice containing some impatience sounded from behind Xiao Yang. It was actually Medusa, who had waited for over half a day. I thought that you wanted to continue being a mute. Xiao Yang turned around and studied Medusa's vertical eyebrows on her pretty face, while he spoke with a smile. Medusa once again displayed a taut face in the face of Xiao Yang's teasing. The latter could only helplessly shake his head at this. He said, let's go. We will make a trip to Pan's Gate first. I don't know when the next time I will return after making this trip to the Jiuman Empire. Therefore, it is best that I settle everything properly. Xiao Yang raised his feet and took the lead to walk outside after he spoke. Medusa was just like a ghost as she closely followed. Xiao Yang's return to Pan's Gate naturally caused Pan's Gate to immediately boil. A countless number of people swarmed over from all directions. Their purpose was to give a reverent cheer to this mysterious leader whom they could hardly see. Xiao Yang's current reputation within the Inner Academy had already reached a certain level. There was no student from any previous batch who could reach such a level. Wu Hao, Hu Jiao, Lin Yang, Xiao Yu, and other important people in the upper echelons of the Pan's Gate once again gathered within the meeting room of Pan's Gate because of Xiao Yang's return. You created such a big commotion the moment you returned. There is currently an unknown number of brothers from Pan's Gate waiting outside for you to reveal yourself. Xiao Yu shook her head as she glanced at Xiao Yang, who was seated in the leader's seat, after hearing the noise float in from outside the hall. You have disappeared for a couple of months again this time around. What do you want to do now that you are back? Lin Yang made a big motion as he sat on his chair and rolled his eyes toward Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang was silent. He immediately spoke in a slow manner, everyone, this time around, I have returned to tell all of you that I may perhaps be leaving the Jiunan Academy and returning to the Jiuman Empire within these 2 months. The original joyous atmosphere within the hall immediately became still after Xiao Yang spoke. Everyone looked at one another. They also knew a little about Xiao Yang's past. Hence, they naturally knew what he intended to do when they heard him saying that he was returning to the Jiuman Empire. Therefore, no one opened their mouths to hold him back. Hu Jiao was finally the first to speak after remaining quiet for a long while. So soon. Xiao Yang bitterly laughed as he faced everyone who had suddenly become much quieter. He sighed, that's right, I have already prepared everything. The Xiao clan is still waiting for me to return. I cannot delay any longer. Everyone was silent. A moment later, numerous voices that appeared as though they had come to a prior agreement appeared. I will leave with you. Xiao Yang was stunned. He looked at everyone who was looking at each other and felt his heart become warm. He smiled and said, I also hope so. However, it is too risky returning to the Jioma Empire this time around. The strength of the Misty Cloud sect might not be any weaker than the lineup of the strong people that Han Feng had gathered to launch a sneak attack on the academy 2 years ago. Moreover, what will happen to Pan's Gate if all of you leave? This is our blood and sweat. Wu Hao and Hu Jiu immediately became dispirited when they heard this. I have agreed with you back then, right? Lin Yang spread his hands and smiled at Xiao Yang. There is no longer much use for me to remain in the inner academy now. It might be better for me to leave and strike out with you. Xiao Yang also hesitated for a moment when he saw Lin Yang's smiling face. He nodded his head and spoke, I shall not say any arrogant words. I am reassured with your strength. Moreover, there is not much use for you to remain in Pan's Gate. It is fine if you follow me. Lin Yang's face could not resist twitching when he heard Xiao Yang's words. What did he mean by there was not much use for him to remain in Pan's Gate? Was this fellow's words not too damaging? Wu Hao and Hu Jiu frowned as they thought deeply. They naturally knew that these factions within the academy did not have the strictness of the sects and gangs in the outside world. No matter how one put it, they were still students. It was not possible to put in place traitor rules for the sect etc. This action of Xiao Yang was to turn Pan's Gate into a talent reservoir for Xiao Gate. Being a faction of the Black Corner region, the various rules within Xiao Gate were definitely very strict. The overall mobilization ability of this kind of faction would naturally exceed Pan's Gate by 10, or even 100 times. It was not bad if they were currently able to make plans for the future, when they had to leave the Jiunan Academy. If you are worried, the two of you can temporarily manage the Xiao Gate, which lacks someone to manage it during this period that I am away. This way, the both of you will be better able to completely understand the implication of this. Xiao Yang smiled as he suggested. You are the true leader of Pan's Gate. You have the right to make such decisions since you possess such a thinking, we will obey you. Wu Hao and Hu Jiu smiled. They mused for a moment before they nodded and spoke. Pan's Gate would have scattered were it not because of you guys. What has it got to do with me? Xiao Yang sighed. The two of you need not flatter each other. Let's do as Xiao Yang says with regards to this matter. Wu Hao and my strength are too weak, and we would likely not be of much help if we were to follow you to the Jioma Empire. Therefore, we will stay behind to manage Pan's Gate and try to understand Xiao Gate. We will come and help you when we break through to the Do Wang class. Hu Jiu rolled her eyes and immediately agreed. Xiao Yang smiled and nodded. He also slowly sighed in relief within his heart. The most important thing was that Pan's Gate had been settled properly. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.